Hi. Welcome again to Architecture is Easy. It's a pleasure to see you. I'm so glad you're back. Today we're talking about the floor. And you're like, the floor? The floor? Why would we talk about the floors? You're like, that is boring. It's not boring. Hold it now. Think about it. Think about how much fun a floor is. Think about all the fun that you have on floors every day, all day long. Everything you do that's fun happens on a floor. Because, I don't know, I presume you don't have any wings. Maybe you do. I mean, if you do, that's cool by me. You know, no judge or hate. I love birds as much as the next guy. But the floor is vital to our human architectural experience. And so today we're going to talk a little bit about it. And to me, when I was a kid, I used to maybe my earliest architectural memory of fantasizing about someday designing an architecture of my own. I remember thinking that I wanted a foot wide, kind of little river to come through the inside of my house and to go everywhere to where I could see the goldfish and various different fish kind of floating. So there just would be this stream. And then I thought, well, you could put a glass plate sort of on cover on it. And that way you could still walk over it and it would stay clean. And you wouldn't, the fish wouldn't jump out onto your floor while you're having friends over for dinner or something like that. But you could kind of come in and this just would be this little koi river all through all the rooms of the house that would just kind of meander through. And that was honestly my earliest architectural sort of memory of design sort of fantasy. So that would be an amazing kind of floor idea. And speaking of which, the floor has kind of a really kind of cool, long-standing past. I think the very first floor were developed by the amoebas billions of years ago. And, they would down when they were still kind of in the sort of murky, crudgy water, they would spit a lot. And then the bubbles from their spit would rise to the surface. And then when that spit would reach contact with the sunlight, there was an ingredient in their spit that would start to become more viscous and kind of sticky, and it would start to bind together with the other spit and creating a woven pattern, which kind of created these little spit rafts that created little floors that the amoebas could jump on top, and then they would just cruise that into land, onto shore, and they would go off and get drunk, meet somebody, and maybe do whatever kind of some what happens on shore stays on shore kind of thing, and then they'd get back on their little raft and scoot over, and then they'd jump back into the murk and go about their business. But that was the first kind of, I believe, recorded use of a floor. And from there, I think what happened is that the people on shore got they were like, wait a minute, why are we just hanging out in the dirt all the time? It's these amoebas come in. First of all, they're kissing up all our girlfriends, and they're buying all of our drinks. And then they have this really cool little sort of transportation kind of standing device called these floating floors. And they're like, we should do that. And they're like, but it's a problem, because if we build floors and we just put them on the ground, then the water comes through, or the fire comes through, or crazy winds come through and just sort of washes it away. So they start getting really clever. And they're like, oh, well, what we'll do is we'll raise the floors up and we'll stick a bunch of people that we don't like under it, and we'll just put the floor on top of a bunch of people we don't like. And those people would become what ultimately became sort of the first sort of foundations for what we consider to, modern day foundations in architecture today. They were just likable people, and they would just kind of carry them on their backs, so that was the kind of beginning of that sort of process. And then over the years, people have done all kinds of interesting things with floors. I personally I think sort of lighted disco floors are sort of a pretty special sort of moment in history. The really intricate tile pattern stuff that you see sometimes in Travel Channel shows and things like that, or if you're in a sort of a subway station that had a good budget, you'll see some really cool floors. yeah, I mean, floors can get pretty clever and kind of fun. Sometimes floors, and this is another thing that kind of kicks back to when I was a kid. I used to skate when I was a kid. I was never very good at it, but I always kind of had dreamt about having just more surfaces that I could sort of skate up, thinking that I could just like, it would be great to just turn the world into like a sort of a giant sort of like endless variety of half pipes and quarter pipes. A lot of people these days use floors that are continuous surface that become the wall and then wrap around, maybe come back down and join the floor again. I think that's a lovely use of the floor. Frank Lloyd Wright used a lot of floors where he would kind of disorientate them and put them off plane, and you would have that kind of floating water kind of effect where you'd have a sort of a series of floors kind of extending out beyond each other in different orientations, and that creates a really interesting, cool effect. Again, the floor on a surface seems like it's something that we just kind of take for granted, but you could do just so much fun, interesting things with them, and they're just a vital part. So why not give them a lot of attention? Why not be like very considerate about that? I mean, like the floor is really kind of the starting point of any architecture. I also think that floors there needs to be more trapdoors in floor. I feel like that's something that the movies do occasionally. That's, I think, really fun, interesting. And like, if you got somebody who's just kind of like, you just pull the plug and sayonara. I think that's a lovely idea. So I would say more trapdoors are a great idea. More lights in the floors. And then, of course, at some point, we're going to have to start putting some marine life in there because, I don't want my childhood fantasies to go to waste. So that's just me. That's just me. Anyway, tell me what you think about floors and what you would do to make floors interesting. And then in the meantime, until then, just remember that architecture is easy. Just do it.